Ladies and gentlemen, from the Trojan Horse episode 2, it's just come on the air. I want the objectosphere to be aware of this.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I mean, at the very top level, what you have then is a worldview that sees that there's objective stuff, and you have a reality tunnel, if you want, instead, that says that everything is subjective.
Correct.
And
those are the two worldviews. There's an objective and there's a subjective worldview, in his mind. I don't think he's an objectivist. I don't know.
The everything is subjective versus, you could think of like cross tunnels or whatever, where some stuff is subjective and that matters. I don't think anybody really denies that, but that there is an objective. But the idea that there is absolutely no access to anything that's objectively true or some higher order principle
that's not
is so alien.
It's lunatic.
Right.
I mean, you have to be a lunatic to believe that.
Right.
Now, in my view, 20 years ago, everybody was saying exactly that. Like, everybody was saying we can't know reality. Everybody was a staunch Kantian and couldn't defend it a bit, but they took it as a bromide. Now, guys are sitting around talking about how that's not the case. Now, these are the guys that did the Soakland thing, I think, right? They were involved with the Soakland thing?
And you have to be in a community of other lunatics who also believe that to keep that belief reinforced.
Right.
It's so utterly outside.
Now, see, he's saying that you can't have that view of reality unless everybody around you has that view, and you have to be in a closed community. So he's saying that from experience. He's seen a closed community occur where? In academia, a government-funded community.
Not only anything that ought to be normative, but you have to work hard to believe that.
Well, it cheats.
It cheats.
It cheats, because if everything's subjective, you can automatically discount anybody else's argument, anybody else's opinion. I was like, oh, that's just your subjective opinion.
Right.
Right.
Which is what the objectivists were saying all along. You've got to have some reality to check things against, guys. So, I think that people are coming around to an objective view of reality.
Like, if I dropped my cell phone off of this skyscraper, I can tell you what's going to happen to it. It's going to tumble. It's going to hit.
He sounds like an objectivist. Is this guy an objectivist? If you drop that phone off the skyscraper, it's going to break, right? So there is an objective reality, right? You stupid hippie? And then the hippie says, it's just your opinion, man.
Hopefully just the street and nobody or their car. It's going to be destroyed because there is an objective reality. And no matter what I believe, I cannot possibly believe my cell phone to float halfway back up from...
Wishing won't make it so. That's a line from Atlas Shrugged. Wishing won't make it so. It's a line from Galt's speech, isn't it?
All the way down and back into my hand, no matter what. But if you tell me, if you truly believe in full radical subjectivity, that only is a manifestation of my subjective opinion.
Situatedness.
How on...
Look there in the distance is a monument to the opposite of subjective opinion. Isn't that a beautiful monument to the opposite of subjective opinion? They are surrounded by a forest of objective fact.
There is no answer to that except to say, okay. And I want to add one more thing to that. The reason that I think this reality tunnel is so dangerous, it's not...
When you say this reality tunnel, you mean the
reality
one, the subjective
tunnel,
one, radical subjectivity.
Radical subjectivity, social justice, intersectionality. The reason that I think this is so dangerous is not only because they won't have a conversation.
Yeah.
And absent conversation, there's no belief intervention, there's no understanding what other people believe.
Right.
It's eventually bloodshed. But the reason that I think it's so dangerous...
Now, that's a pretty dark outlook, but if you have censorship, then, as Ayn Rand said, everything's hopeful until there's no freedom of speech. Once there's freedom of speech is gone, then there's no hope. And he just said bloodshed. It's like these guys have read Ayn Rand, but the thing is, they are getting this from observing it in the university system.
Is that, look, if someone doesn't want to have a conversation with somebody, hey, they don't want to have a conversation with them. There's no book we could write to teach someone who's hell-bent on not having a conversation how to have a conversation. But the point is, those people, not only do they not want to have a conversation, but they don't even want us to have a conversation.
Right.
They don't even think we should be talking.
That's why
to each
we're
other.
talking.
That's why we're talking.
Right.
And to be held hostage to a bunch of, and I would argue that this is far from a majority view. This is a not only is it a minority.
You see, if everybody agrees there's no reality we can refer to, and somebody pipes up and says there is too a reality we can refer to, you just have to shun those people. And objectivism has been the Donald Trump of philosophy for a long time, shunned and laughed at, and just ignored. And it turns out it's the most important thing in the room. So, I want you to pay heed, ladies and gentlemen, that there's a current shift in the philosophical softness of the people, the culture around us. They're philosophically malleable. And right now we can sort of come and talk to them about certain things they wouldn't normally be willing to listen to. And we can say, well, listen, there are these things called axioms or whatever. You just explain whatever you can to the person nearby. Just meet somebody or talk to somebody online or whatever and explain whatever you can to them. And right now, the culture is particularly susceptible to the message that there is an objective reality and reason is the only way to apprehend it. And I think the election of Trump is evidence for a pretty good, hopeful future. And the dark, grim future of Europe means an unfortunate type of boom in America as long as we don't fall victim to the same disease. Which I think, if the 1930s and 40s are an indication, then I think we'll be okay. So, there we are, ladies and gentlemen. If you appreciate what I do, patronize me. $5 or $10 a month helps me build up a stream so that I can afford to take the time to do this without feeling guilty about the time I spend. And the more reliable I can be about doing it. Thank you, Mr. Cropper out.